How did Alex Ela pull that off? The stadium wasn't just loud, it was trembling. Every point felt like a seismic event. When the final ball sailed long, the eruption inside the arena sounded less like applause and more like disbelief. And there she was, Alex Ela, completely drained, shoulders slumped, legs heavy. She could barely make the walk to the net for the handshake. That's how much she left out there. But make no mistake, this wasn't just another upset. This was a statement victory. Ela and her partner didn't just sneak past a solid team. They dismantled the number 2 seeds, one half of the reigning Australian Open champions. Think about that for a second. Just weeks ago, that very player was lifting a Grand Slam trophy in Melbourne. Championship pedigree, elite experience, momentum on their side. And yet, in one electric night, they were outplayed. That's what makes this different. This wasn't chaos. It wasn't luck. It was controlled aggression, belief under pressure, and fearlessness in the biggest moments. Ela stepped into rallies without hesitation. She attacked second serves. She redirected pace like she belonged at that level, because she does. For Southeast Asian tennis, this wasn't just a win. It was a breakthrough moment. For years, the region has searched for a player capable of consistently challenging the sport's elite on the biggest stages. Now, they might have won. And then came the moment that changed the conversation entirely. During a routine Australian Open press conference, Novak Djokovic, the most accomplished player of the modern era, was fielding standard questions. The evolution of Melbourne Park, the swelling attendance numbers, the corporate growth of the sport, the tighter schedules. Some critics had complained about overcrowded outer courts, long lines, fans scrambling for access. That's when Djokovic brought up Alex Ela. Unprompted, he acknowledged the chaos around her match. He didn't brush it off. He understood why people were talking about it. A young player emerging from the Philippines, a country with massive population, massive sports passion, and enormous untapped tennis potential. That's significant. He pointed out that she could very well be the biggest tennis talent her nation has ever produced. That's not a casual compliment. He also addressed the scheduling debate. Yes, maybe she could have been on a show court. Maybe the organizers underestimated the demand. But early rounds are stacked. Top seeds must be prioritized. Logistically, it's a puzzle every tournament struggles to solve. And then Djokovic flipped the entire narrative. He basically said, complaining about too many fans is a luxury problem. Think about that perspective. This is a man who has been on tour long enough to remember when the Australian Open didn't have the scale it does today. He recalled using makeshift facilities, even borrowing a gym from a local Australian rules football club just to warm up. That's the contrast. He has seen scarcity. He has seen empty seats. He has seen tournaments fighting for attention. So when he says there are worse nightmares than overcrowding, it comes from lived experience. Empty stands, low energy, lack of interest. That's the real crisis for sport. But packed courts? Fans rushing to catch a glimpse of a rising star? Security scrambling to manage overflow crowds? That means something is working. And then came the word that froze the room. Superstar. Djokovic doesn't throw that around lightly. He has played against legends. He has shared locker rooms with the greatest players in history. When someone with that resume recognizes the aura building around a young player, it's not hype. It's instinct. He sees something. Maybe it's the composure under pressure. Maybe it's the crowd connection. Maybe it's the timing of her rise in a new tennis market. Maybe it's all of it. What's clear is this: when a player like Djokovic validates you publicly, sponsors notice. Tournament directors notice. Broadcasters notice. That single word can shift court assignments, media coverage, and opportunity flow. Because tennis, for all its tradition, runs on momentum. And right now, Alex Ela has it. She's not just winning matches. She's creating scenes. She's drawing crowds. She's forcing scheduling conversations. She's being discussed in press conferences involving the greatest player of all time. That's when you know something bigger is happening. This isn't just a hot streak. This isn't just a feel-good underdog story. This is market expansion. This is geographic shift. This is a new tennis audience waking up. The Philippines alone represents millions of potential new fans. Southeast Asia represents hundreds of millions more. If even a fraction rally behind her the way they have started to, the sport changes in subtle but meaningful ways. Broadcast deals, sponsorship priorities, scheduling strategies. And all of that started with one exhausted walk to the net. One upset. One electric night. One press conference. One word. Superstar. So now the real question isn't how she pulled it off. The real question is, what happens next? Because when the sport's most respected voice signals that a breakthrough is real, the wave doesn't slow down. It builds. Here's your rewritten, smoother and more dynamic version with stronger narrative flow and sharper punch. He accidentally said Essendon, then quickly corrected himself to Collingwood, immediately apologizing because in Australia, you do not mess around with sports rivalries. Even that small moment showed how deeply sport runs in the country's veins. But his larger point was much bigger than AFL banter. The Australian Open has transformed over the years. It once felt like a scrappy event fighting for global respect. Now it's a powerhouse. Retractable roofs, packed night sessions, 5-star hospitality, primetime broadcasts worldwide. That evolution isn't selling out. It's success. It's proof the sport has grown into a global spectacle drawing millions of eyes from every corner of the world. Then Novak Djokovic shifted the conversation to Alex Ila, and that's when the tone changed entirely. He brought up the chaos surrounding her match being scheduled on a tiny outer court while thousands of fans tried to squeeze in. The locker room, he said, was buzzing about it, and understandably so. Barriers were pushed. Security scrambled. The logistics simply couldn't handle the surge. It was absolute bedlam. But here's the twist. Djokovic didn't frame it as a disaster. He framed it as a sign of something bigger, a seismic shift in tennis. Yes, he admitted organizers probably should have anticipated the demand and placed her on a larger court. But the real headline wasn't the miscalculation. It was the mob that showed up. Because Alex Ila isn't just another rising player. She represents a nation. The Philippines has over 110 million people, and for the first time, they have a tennis star commanding attention on the world stage. When Djokovic calls her a superstar, that's not casual praise. That's the greatest player of this era recognizing that she's crossed the line from talented prospect to cultural phenomenon. The weight on her shoulders isn't just about rankings or prize money. It's about carrying the hopes of a country that sees her as its champion in a global arena. And let's be honest, this is where some sarcasm is deserved. Tournament officials completely misread the moment. They placed a player backed by 110 million passionate supporters on a court that barely holds a few hundred fans. What exactly was the plan? Did they think everyone would quietly settle for a phone stream instead of lining up at the gates? This wasn't just an oversight. It exposed how slow parts of tennis leadership can be in recognizing where the sport is heading. For decades, the box office formula centered on established Western icons. But the landscape is changing fast. Tennis is globalizing at breakneck speed, and Alex Ila is living proof. Djokovic captured it perfectly when he talked about balancing crowd control with preserving the magic. He witnessed the frenzy. He understood the energy. What happened around her match wasn't chaos for chaos' sake. It was a preview of the future. Here's your rewritten version with tighter flow, sharper metaphors, and elevated storytelling power. New markets. Starving fan bases. Pure pandemonium. The old scheduling system simply can't cope with the raw force of what happens when a player becomes a national icon overnight. It was built for gradual ascents, not explosions. And that's what makes this story so wild. Most tennis stars are slow-cooked. They grind for years. Futures. Challengers. Quiet early round losses. They inch their way up the rankings and build a fan base brick by brick. But with Alex Ila, it felt like a detonation. One minute she's a promising junior. The next, an entire nation is tracking her every move, refreshing scoreboards, filling stadium aisles just to witness a single forehand in person. The tennis ecosystem wasn't engineered for that kind of instant wait. Court assignments, broadcast windows, media obligations. Everything is calibrated for the traditional climb. When someone bypasses that slow progression on the back of pure cultural momentum rather than ranking math, the machinery jams. That's why Novak Djokovic's perspective carries so much weight. He's lived this reality. Novak Djokovic understands what it means to carry a nation. Serbia may be smaller than the Philippines, but expectation feels the same regardless of population size. When he describes fame as a golden cage, he isn't being poetic, he's being brutally honest. The same wave that lifts you can drown you. For a teenage sensation like Alex Ila, still carving her identity on the pro tour, that pressure is monumental. This isn't just about rankings and prize money anymore. She's balancing the hopes of millions who treat her victories like national holidays. That's a psychological load far heavier than the average rookie ever carries. And that chaotic scene around her match? Those weren't casual spectators wandering in for entertainment. They were believers. Fans who crossed oceans. Supporters who fought through packed entryways just to share oxygen in the same arena. The tennis itself almost became secondary. She wasn't just a competitor in a draw. She was a symbol. And symbols change economics. Djokovic didn't condemn the disorder. He interpreted it as evidence. Evidence that the sport is stretching beyond its traditional framework. Grand Slam Week 1 is always noisy, but when a rising star can eclipse main court buzz, that signals a structural shift. This is no longer just about who lifts the trophy. It's about identity. When the greatest player of this era publicly backs a rising star, two powerful things happen. First, it validates the phenomenon. Critics can dismiss it as patriotic hype all they want. But when Djokovic labels you a superstar, that endorsement carries authority. Second, it creates armor. Instant fame always attracts skepticism. Too much noise. Too soon. Resume doesn't match the spotlight. Those narratives pop up every time. But a nod from a legend reframes the discussion. It sends a clear message. Adjust your expectations, because this moment is real. The contrast with Djokovic's early days is staggering. He remembers training in modest facilities, sharing recovery spaces with footballers, scraping for visibility. Now, the Australian Open is a polished global machine, climate-controlled arenas, cutting-edge facilities, luxury boxes. That transformation happened because tennis embraced globalization. But globalization comes with complexity. What happens when a player's cultural gravity outpaces her ranking? That's the puzzle organizers are scrambling to solve. Djokovic's philosophy is simple and powerful. A loud, electric crowd beats an empty, polite one every time. Silence is what kills sports. A stadium without passion is a warning sign. A tiny outer court bursting at the seams with roaring fans? That's growth, even if it's messy. Thousands of supporters pressing against gates to catch a glimpse of a Filipino prodigy isn't a disaster. It's the best kind of chaos. It means the game is breaking barriers, reaching new territories, and lighting fires in places that used to feel disconnected from the tennis map. And that's not a problem. That's evolution. Many of those fans might never have picked up a racket before. And that right there, that's how legacies are built. Yes, in the short term it creates chaos. Overcrowded courts, security scrambling, schedules collapsing under pressure. But those are golden problems. You can build bigger stadiums. You can redesign draws. You can strengthen logistics. What you cannot manufacture is passion. That is the true currency of any global sport. The unspoken question now is whether tennis elite structure is ready for this seismic shift. For decades, a tight circle of traditional powerhouses has dominated the narrative. The sport revolved around familiar nations, familiar markets, familiar heroes. Now, that formula is being challenged. Talents like Alex Ila are erupting from countries once considered peripheral in the tennis world, and they're bringing armies of fans who don't fit the old stereotypes. Will organizers adapt? Or will they continue sidelining these cultural icons to outer courts, only to act shocked when chaos erupts? Ila has become a litmus test for tennis global ambition. If the establishment can successfully fuse these explosive new fan bases with a traditional purist crowd, It will mark a defining evolution for the sport. But dismissing this movement as hype instead of recognizing it as the future would be a catastrophic miscalculation. And this is where Novak Djokovic enters the equation. When Djokovic speaks, the tennis world listens. There was no condescension in his voice when he addressed Ila. No hint of dismissal. He spoke to her as a fellow warrior, just one beginning her ascent. That carries enormous weight coming from the man who holds the all-time Grand Slam record, someone who could easily guard the gates of the elite if he chose to. Instead, he opened them. By publicly backing her, he acknowledged a simple reality. Tennis cannot survive forever on a steady rotation of European and American icons. It needs new blood, new territories, new energy. The sport must expand or risk stagnation. Ila represents that expansion. Her journey isn't just personal, it's symbolic. Her success or failure will echo beyond her ranking. The next chapter is gripping. Can she carry the crushing expectations of millions and mature into the legend people are already envisioning? Will tournament organizers learn from the Australian Open pandemonium and finally position rising global stars appropriately? Or will they cling to tradition while the landscape shifts beneath their feet? Djokovic's endorsement gives her something invaluable: protection. When critics inevitably surface questioning whether she's earned the spotlight, she has the ultimate validation: recognition from one of the greatest players in history. That knot functions like armor against skeptics eager to tear down any rising star who ascends too quickly. As for the chatter about tennis becoming overly corporate, that criticism misses context. Every major global spectacle evolves this way. Corporate investment builds the arenas, funds the prize pools, and transforms tournaments into international events. Yes, money brings complications. But without resources, there is no stage for greatness. The real challenge isn't avoiding commercialization. It's preserving the soul of competition within it. To its credit, tennis has walked that line better than most sports. The rivalries remain authentic. The battles on clay and grass are still decided by skill and nerve, not marketing narratives. As long as that remains true, the spectacle is substance, not just noise. And that's the core message. Djokovic didn't simply compliment Alex Ila. He recognized a movement. The chaos around her wasn't a scheduling error. It was a signal.